Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Hi, Anne. Okay, Vanessa, I sent Mindy the YouTube live link. She said she'd post it on Facebook. And we are live streaming.
I was giving a couple minutes.
Your audio is doing the 80s electronic music sound.
Also, is my internet bad again? I'm at gymnastics. So if I sound like I will try the car then. Is it any better over here?
It is a little better. And I'm not sure where Mindy is. I left her at school.
Maybe she's having, well, no, that's to Facebook. I was going to say problems posting the YouTube live, but
Here's Paula.
okay, now do I sound better? I'm connected to my car in my car.
It's a lot better.
Okay.
But do we want to get started while it's a little after 5:30, and then when people come in, they can chat to try to catch up to anything that they've missed.
Yes, let's go ahead and start. Did we send the link to anyone who didn't have it before? Did I accidentally send it to them?
I don't know. I haven't sent out the link to anyone. Just the announcement on our website, and then the YouTube live link from
Is
there.
the YouTube live link on the website?
It is on the website, yes.
Okay. I had posted earlier on the Facebook page the link to the APB page of the website, so they can find the YouTube link that way, and it was put on there. So I don't see where Mindy's posted it, so maybe she got hung up with something.
Paige, if I email that to you, can you post that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. While we are posting that, since it is accessible, I think it's safe to go ahead and call to order at 5:38. I kept the agenda kind of the same as last time, but I don't know where we want to start after yesterday's APB meeting.
Can we go with a recap on what was done at the APB and what they said, just for those of us that weren't able to go? May just be me.
Sure. I don't think it was just you. Let's see. There were a lot of questions. Well, let's see. So we had a couple of public inputs from staff members who were afraid it was being rushed through, that we couldn't compete with electives, that the kids outgrow uniforms and behavior expectations, and are afraid of the funding not being there. And then a parent who gave public input who fully supported the idea and would totally keep their kids here and have kids that went to both Mirror Lake and Greening and didn't like that situation, so would do anything that would help us get a 7th and 8th grade. And then let's see, reading through my notes. So we submitted to the district like how the curriculum will go with ours, why we want the program, and how the facilities could work, because it needed to go. The school board, what is he called? The director of school boards, charter school director, whatever. He had to submit it to the superintendent so she could vet it to take to her cabinet if she so chose, of the other directors of areas, and they would decide if it goes to the school board meeting next week. So we did that this morning, so they have an idea of where we kind of got to. Deanne put on the drive, but went over at the meeting, budget projections for next year and the year after, and next year and the year after and the year after, showing that it would be fundable. And some questions that came up were, would we have to hire another special ed teacher or not? Can we figure out a break-even budget? So like, at what point of head count would we have to dip into savings to cover the program at some point? Understanding the first couple of years would be a starting point, but for future years, what is the break-even point? And we've never had we haven't had a teacher with 7th and 8th grade in Spalding training, so would it be hard to find someone who would do it? Let's see here. And some other questions that came up, or do we have to have a counselor for middle school? And Deanne said possibly yes, and that ASD has been working on even elementary schools being required to have a counselor, so it might be a good way to start having one. Someone said, does Saxon go all the way through geometry? And it does. We just didn't have a copy of the text to line out the scope and sequence for that. Someone asked, what about gifted students? And I think it was you, Deanne, who said that College Board, and I'm not sure what that is, has pre-AP classes. If that was something that we needed to do, we could maybe do that. And someone suggested talking to the middle school principals about student participation in sports, because it is allowable, but we want to make sure before we were to say that parents could, with both school principals' approval, do that. We wanted to make sure that they would say yes. And someone asked if PE or health has to be every day, and if science included health, which our current science for K6 does, but I think it's kind of hard to find in newer curriculum. But if it included health, we wouldn't have to have the separate health class. And then bathroom spaces, would upping the head count require more bathrooms, but we're not sure. Yes, at some point, but we don't know what the municipal code is, or if there's a school code rule about that. And then it was brought up to consider horizontal expansion, so more elementary grade levels instead of vertical, or vertical but then horizontal, and to think about that when planning or assuming other space in the building. And I think that's all I wrote down. So if you, Deanne, or Paige have any more to add, feel free.
I do. I met with Daryl this morning via Zoom to go over the board memo, and so we worked through some details specifically, And there was also, we need to request an adjustment in our total enrollment count, because our enrollment was just for K-6. So I did add an additional 52 students. Actually, we moved the count up to 140, or 240 students would be the maximum enrollment. And that's a little more than the 26 kids PTR that we currently have, but it doesn't require us to fill up to that 240. So that was just one of the things that he had some questions on. He did submit it to Dr. Bishop this afternoon. So we will wait and see what the cabinet says. And I don't know, what their schedule is for reviewing items to get requested to put on the board agenda. I do know that there are probably 3 other charter school requests for changes to their charter, or minor changes to their charter. Most of them include increasing enrollment capacities. I did email Bobby Jeffs. He is the principal at Greening Middle School. They are planning to open this fall, 2021-22, and it'll be 7-8. He said there is talks about adding a 6th grade, but there's no timeline set for when that would actually happen. So at least for the school year, it's still 7-8, or this coming school year.
Moderately good news. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I also did reach out to Peggy Rankin, who is the Senior Director for Talent Management in the district, to find out what the expectations were for certifications for middle school teachers. The news is that middle school teachers currently have to show proof of content knowledge. And in order to demonstrate that, there are 2 ways that teachers can do that. One is they can pass the Praxis 2 test in that content area. Or the second is that they can provide a transcript with university courses, either graduate or undergraduate courses, with the equivalent of a minor in that subject area. So our middle school teachers would have to have pass a Praxis test or have a minor in the English, language arts, science, social studies, math, and also foreign language, art, music, and PE. So a general K-8 certification would not apply for our middle school teachers. So in taking that into consideration, I spent some time this morning working through a schedule, thinking about staffing and personnel to try to figure out what's going on. And I did add that as, I believe, a 3rd example in the shared drive. So if anybody has had a chance to take a look at that. We can probably go through that when it comes up in the agenda.
What did you say besides language, art, science, social studies, and math, art, and PE? Something art and PE?
Art, PE, music, and foreign language. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any questions on any of that from anybody?
Did you say that we're going to go over the staffing that you think we would need? Okay, then my question will come then.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to go in agenda order? So the curriculum / scope and sequence again? Yes, okay. So, all right, what did we talk about last time? Mindy and Anne had drafted like the 4 core subject curriculum and scope and sequence. So we had talked through the language arts, which looked good, but suggested moving the novels, not stuck in a quarter, and adding some classics. So she has revised what's on the drive now to move novels just to the end as examples of what could be used. And there's contemporary and classics in there. And then math, we talked about last time, doing the district curriculum versus Saxon. And Dan really recommended we stick with continuation of our program to be more likely to be approved by the district. So Mindy put new math on there for using Saxon for the course 3, which is a continuation of what our 5th and 6th grade do, course 1 and 2. And then algebra, and they do have a geometry book, but we don't have a copy of it to do a scope and sequence for that yet. And then we looked at what was drafted was the district standards for science and social studies, but we weren't really sure what to use, how to get there. I found that the core knowledge that we use is in the process of writing middle school social studies curriculum, and 7th grade is coming soon, according to a blog post on their website. So that was good news. So I guess we would, I think, preference is to use that, but can discuss it here. And then science, we still aren't sure, besides what the district standards cover. And then Mindy found out that they use a science curriculum called Inspire Science. And aside from that, last time we just talked about electives. And I think Anne had drafted some generic scopes and sequence for that and put them on the drive. So I don't know where we want to go for that direction of conversation. If anyone has any questions.
Should we not make a sort of decision about the science? I mean, I feel like we've made a decision for the social studies. Should we figure out a decision for the science so that we have something solid?
I guess my personal opinion on that is the easy thing to do is use what the district is using, but that's only for a fast solution. I don't know if that's what we would want for a permanent solution. And the other thing that I don't know if it's on the drive or not, but was suggested to take the 5th grade book and split it between 5th and 6th grades, and the 6th grade book and split it between 7th and 8th grades. So kind of find something new, do the split of what we have, or use what the district is using.
Would the split of what we have cover everything that they would need to know, Mindy?
It would cover everything that they need to know. I just don't think it will be, I don't think it will be up to the high standards that we have. I just feel like we'll have social studies, I feel would be okay, science not okay, because there's so much in science that they're just building on year after year and then they add more to it. I just feel like they need that. Whereas social studies, I mean, they're doing world history in 7th grade with a map unit and then US history in 8th grade. So I feel like we could take out a few concepts if we wanted to in social studies and go more in depth into different ones easier than science. If that makes sense. I'm sorry. My brain is tired tonight.
What is the feasibility or desirability, I guess, what if we tried to do both? Like, what if we said, okay, our primary is what we have in our current books that you're going to split between 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. But then for 7 and 8, we can use what the district has to supplement in certain areas. Would that be frowned upon, or that way you kind of have a little bit of both to pull from when needed? And then we're also not having to look for something brand new.
Are you talking about social studies? Or are you referring to science?
Science. Sorry, science. Social studies, I'm confident with what you said about sharing the 5, 6, and 7, 8, especially until they get their 7th going, and then we can just transition into that if we want to. But I was just talking about science.
Yes, but the 7th grade curriculum that they have with the US history really goes for 8th grade. And I think, and this is my opinion, that if we have kids coming in from other parts in the school district that are used to, world geography and world history in 7th grade and US history in 8th grade, we should at least keep those years the same.
Okay, well,
Yes, but if
just because they call it 7th, if they just are calling it 7th grade, we
Right.
could use it for 8th grade. That's what I meant.
Yes.
what
Yeah.
they're developing is US history for 7th grade and like a world history geography for 8th grade, but we could use, they say on their website, you can use them to meet your state's standards in whichever grade. They're just doing that. That just happens to be the one they're making first, but they are making the two separate ones.
Okay, because I thought they were just making the US history one, and I'm like, oh, well, that'd be great for 8th grade, but I feel really good with the 7th grade as it is now, using the Atlas geography curriculum that was purchased for 6th grade when I first got here, and using some of the world history components from 6th grade. And then I took the 5th grade and the 6th grade books and put those into 2-week 10-day units. And that way, I just feel like Judy and I aren't so rushed to try and get through an entire book. We can get through that book in 2 years, in 5th and 6th grade, and do still kind of what we're doing now. Does that answer your question, or am I just so like?
Well, I was going back to, I was really saying that about the science. Like, so social studies, I was pretty confident with what you had said and basically saying what you had just said. But what I was saying about the science, if we need to nail something down to present, then what how is
Oh.
it going to look? Like, can we say, okay, well, let's try to do something similar with our science curriculum, except for in 7th and 8th, we would like to also supplement with district text materials. Or is that just not, is that going to not look good, or is that not going to mesh well?
I mean, I looked at their scope and sequence because I got the information from the district science person about what the district uses for science. And I downloaded their scope and sequence and their program overview. And I feel like what they have in their scope and sequence mirrors what we are wanting our students to learn, although I do not know, what their textbook looks like and, is it up to our standards? I don't know that. I did take a look at my 6th grade science book, and I will be completely honest, it was very difficult to try and figure out how I would separate it into 2 years. If I need to have life science taught each year and earth science taught each year and physical science taught each year and space and technology, I didn't know which one should go where because they all kind of, there's not like a standalone unit or lesson. They all depend on the one before them. If I did, life science and earth science this year and then physical science and space and technology the next year, yeah, that would work, but that's not giving them the full parameters of what science is all about either.
Deanne, do you have any input, recommendation?
Just as a rigor standpoint, I do not recommend that we split the 6th grade textbook curriculum to try to make it a 6th, 7th grade curriculum. One of the things that was mentioned, I think last night and maybe the last time the committee met, was to try to do health not as a standalone class. We currently have health. The district has health, a special health curriculum that a health teacher actually teaches, separate from PE and science. But we already have in our curriculum that health is taught through our science because those components are actually in the science textbooks. My hope is that we could find a middle school science text that also teaches the district expectations for health so that we don't have to teach it as a standalone class in the middle school, that we could teach it through our science. And that will open up, options for other electives that students could take. It's not that they won't be getting the health requirement, but since we're already doing it in our elementary program and it was approved by the district, I think we can make the point that we'd like to continue that through our middle school curriculum. So I think the two choices of looking at a separate science curriculum or going with what the district has would be a good recommendation, or at least a good starting point for us to recommend to the full APB, and then maybe let them make that decision.
Vanessa, is the curriculum is written in the charter, question mark, or no?
Correct.
Correct, it is.
Yes.
So when we changed the science book this year, that meant it changed the chart. It changed in the charter.
No, because we bought Scott Forsman to replace Scott Forsman.
Okay, so it doesn't have the date that or the
There's
edition in the
no
charter.
published or edition date. No.
Okay.
Is there another level up with that same curriculum? Do you know, Vanessa? Like,
There's not. That's why we're in
Unfortunately,
this
no.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it stops at 6. Because I was going to
Yeah,
say, if
even
we,
the old ones stopped at 6. That was just a K6 thing that they did.
because I was going to say, if we can just say, okay, let's for now go with the district's science, and then we can research other options for later, like when we get the full building going, 7 and 8, then we can swap over to that. But that may not be a good idea if we have to change charter. So
As a teacher, I would rather not do 1 year of teaching the district science and then have to switch the next year to teach a whole new science curriculum. If we're going to choose one for 7th and 8th grade, I'd rather spend the time and choose the one we're going to use and let that be it than keep going back and forth.
and I think if we choose one, we do what Ms. Carroll said, that we go ahead and integrate the health into it. Because if we take the district one, we're going to have to then take the district health curriculum too, which is separate right now. But if we can find one that's together, it would probably be better.
So I know with Scott's Forsman, everything in health that we looked at, like alcohol and tobacco abuse and the different body systems and all that, it's all covered in Scott's Forsman. And in the newest edition, they even have more on the endocrine system, but not like in the way of a human growth and development. I think that part will still have to be added for 7th and 8th grade like it is for 5th and 6th.
But could just be, that's not like 3 months long, right? It's just like
Right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
can be just like what we do now. We take, what is it, 2 weeks and 2 days every 2 or 3 days during the 2 weeks to do that. Yeah, it would just be a special thing.
Does anyone know what curriculum the rest of the district uses? Is it McGraw-Hill?
For science,
Yeah.
it is integrated iScience. I think that's the name of it, if I remember correctly.
I thought it was Inspire Science.
Inspired iScience. I can't remember. It starts with an I and it has an
It's-
iScience in it.
It's on the Google Drive,
Okay.
the scope and sequence of it and the name of it.
Yeah, and then there's a I think it's like a 70 or 80 page PDF about the program itself. I just downloaded that and put it into that expansion as well. So you could see what they said.
So then, Deanne, assuming we can get on the school board agenda, what are they going to be? I mean, are they going to be expecting us in the next 5 days to drum up a science curriculum, or will they be like, no, we understand that you're still looking, come back to us when you have a name? Or
Well, I think that's all part of the board's discussion and approval process. The board might expect that Dr. Bishop and her cabinet is going to flush all that out. But we did not send any of our specific curriculum to them. We just sent our statements of what we would be doing for the language arts, math, science, and social studies. Mindy's little section in there did say that we were looking at or considering some curriculum. It always surprises me what the board chooses to focus on when they discuss plans. Sometimes they just look at it and say, we're good, we don't have any questions. And then sometimes they have really specific pointed questions.
All right. Does anyone have any more discussion on curriculum and scope and sequence, or do we want to move on to the next thing?
Do we want to have maybe a committee or a couple of people start looking into some specific science curriculum? And maybe even one of those being the districts, to see if the district curriculum has the potential to also cover health standards or expectations. I think that's something we need to be working on anyway, between now and when we do launch the program.
Anybody want to volunteer for that? I mean, I don't mind. I mean, even if I'm not on a committee for it, I'll probably just still look anyway, just because I am interested in it. But
I don't have a problem looking at what the school district has. I just don't want to be looking for whatever. I can look at the thing and see how well it integrates with what we're doing and our standards. I just don't want to try and find one right now with report cards and stuff like that coming due.
I don't mind Googling and seeing what's out there.
I'm doing it right now, so I'll help you.
Do you want me to go ahead and look through the districts or just let you gals handle that?
Can you start it? And then if you get too much into it with report cards, then I'll take it over.
Okay.
I don't think we wrote up anything for the foreign language before we switch off a curriculum. And I think we probably should decide which languages we're going to offer so we could put in those short blurbs.
I checked in with,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I checked in with Brandon Locke. He is I think he's the director of curriculum instruction now, but he also is specifically a foreign language fiend. And so we talked a lot about the fact that if we did want to build a program that would allow our students to carry up a middle school credit, just like they can carry up algebra and geometry as high school credits if they take it in the middle school with us, that those kiddos could earn a full year foreign language credit if they took 4 consecutive semesters of that with us. So the recommendation was that we select either French, German, or Spanish, because those are the 3 that are taught at Chugiak and Eagle River. Just as a reference, someone mentioned Japanese last week. The Japanese immersion program is at Sand Lake, Mears, and Diamond, but it is also taught at East. And German is also taught at Bartlett. But the majority of our families, I think, are going to be Eagle River families. So they'll probably have their kids go to high school at Chugiak or Eagle River. I know of a teacher in the district that can teach French and is a music teacher and a social studies teacher. I sent an email to her today to see if she would be willing to take the Praxis 2 in language arts. We'll see what she says. But he also said that the majority of the foreign language teachers in the district are full-time, and those that are part-time because they only want to teach those few sections that they're teaching. He mentioned that the French teacher at Chugiak doesn't teach a full line of French. That person also teaches 1 or 2 sections of language arts, and they may be interested or may even consider teaching 1 or 2 sections for us. We would need 2 sections if we did that, because we would want a 7th grade section and an 8th grade section. So,
Well, that's kind of good news because we were afraid we couldn't find someone to fill a 1 or 2 slots.
well, that doesn't mean that that person would agree to do it, but I have a handle on somebody who could teach French, and there may be other people in the district. He said they're few and far between. He always has a hard time recruiting those teachers because most schools don't have the immersion program kids coming up, so they don't actually have enough sections for a full time, and then they'd have to teach something else. So. But our foreign language, I think, the program, it would behoove us to follow what the district has for their program of studies for their language, or their academic plans for their language courses. The committee might want to take a look at those and see if those are acceptable. I don't think that there's necessarily anything objectionable to that.
I wouldn't think so either with foreign language. Did you talk at all about, like, if we can't find a teacher, if that an online would be an option?
I totally didn't think about that. He just said, hey, if we needed help when we figure out what we wanted to teach, I could reach out to him and he could see if he has feelers for anybody that would be willing to teach that. But I totally spaced the online option, asking him about that. I can email him tomorrow or tonight after the meeting.
Okay.
I can look at what the district has as like their blurb for foreign language if we wanted to just choose 2 of them, and then I'll put those in there. Or 1, I don't know what everybody was thinking.
You said the district person said Spanish and French. Is that what you said? Is that both schools?
Spanish, French, and German.
And
Yep.
German.
I have some friends that live in Eagle River, or that don't live in Eagle River, that live down in Anchorage with young kids. And the German immersion programs in Anchorage are pretty competitive to actually get into. So not my personal choice, because what I want, nobody else really wants. But German would probably set us well apart from what everybody else in Eagle River is offering, and could even potentially draw in some people from Anchorage because it's a highly competitive program down there to get into.
I never said we didn't want Japanese. I
I'm
just
just
said that it was.
biased.
I just said that since the high schools don't offer it,
I know.
then it's
I've
hard to be
considered-
like, "Hey, come here and do Japanese," even though you can't carry it to the high school level, even though we wanted you to do that in the first place.
we just live there, so I'm slightly biased to Japan and any Japanese.
Okay. Okay, so you think we should pick a language, Deanne? Or that it's okay to wait to pick one? And you're muted.
I think we can present the fact that we are planning on offering a foreign language option, and that we would want to stay consistent with what's in Shugiak Eagle River, and then determine what that is based on, our ability to recruit and hire someone.
Hey, okay. Awesome.
Are you okay with me, when we get to the point when we actually are putting out a 502 for teachers, saying that we are looking for someone with either of these 3 language certifications? Okay.
When you search, just random, when we search on like the website, if we were looking like being a teacher and we search for it, if we put in like French, would it bring up that even though we have all 3 listed? Or like, does that make any sense? Maybe I'm not making sense. Like, I'm just thinking like if there's a French teacher and she knows she wants to teach French and she specifically types in French, will it bring up our school as an option? Sorry, lots of noise in the background. Will it bring up our school as an option because we have all 3 listed? Or will it only bring up that first option of whatever we type in?
So it'll be listed probably as a middle school teacher, but in the description it'll say experience preferred in these 3 languages. Or, we could just say we're looking for a 0.2 or 0.1 French teacher. And then when they type up French, it'll just say French. Or Mindy can really get on the ball and start learning a foreign language between now and August.
Habla español. Un poco. That would be my preference because I bet I could bring it back. Although Japanese would be fun to learn.
Right? Maybe we should just offer an elective in Japanese.
Yeah, I'll take it too.
First year of Japanese is it's a very logical language. I think our students would pick it up super fast.
It's a beautiful language.
And we also might be able to partner with the Japanese immersion program because they actually use teachers from Japan wanting to do their internship. And they actually don't pay those people. Those are they're here kind of like on a foreign exchange type thing. But anyway,
Maybe we need an after-school foreign language club. aside from the foreign language that we would offer for other fun.
For,
See, there you go. We can
for us
do,
adults
yeah.
that want to do it.
Yeah, right.
Because then we can still offer the one where they can pull the credit up to the high school, but then do that one after school for fun and cultural diversity.
I'm gonna get Japanese here in Eagle River yet. Woohoo!
Okay, are we good on curriculum and scope and sequence for those items? Does anyone have any questions, comments? Do we want to move on to electives for the next one? Yes, okay. Electives. So we put foreign language as something we've decided we do want to offer, so not really an elective, but not really an elective. And then do we want to do PE here? We have to offer PE, so it's not really an optional. So I think like true electives, do we need to decide what they are, or we're just going to let it be teacher preference on what they want to teach? I guess, what do we want to recommend for those? And Deanne looks like she's screen sharing. But if you are talking, Deanne, we cannot hear you.
So in the middle school program of studies, they do have a decent breadth of electives. One of the things, some of the things that were already on there when Paige did her different options, where there, and we do have to offer PE, and then there was the option program 1, where PE was not a standalone class, but it was actually taught just a couple of times a week. And so I worked through kind of a schedule based on the information I got from talent management, and then the information I got from our current teachers on staff. So there's kind of 2 ways to build a program. One is you build it around the staff and the expertise that they already have. And then one is to just kind of build it around the emphasis or the focus that you want. And we do already know that we have our core content areas. And we also know that we have some part-time teachers that have some wiggle room to be able to teach up to a 0.5 before they have to give up their retirement or anything else like that. So keeping that in mind for the 7th and 8th grade and doing the 2 days a week of PE so that they have it, a full year. And for us to be able to afford to give our 2 middle school teachers a prep period throughout the day. And then also keeping in mind that our special teachers in the elementary school only teach Monday through Thursday. So I suggested that our foreign language and our electives, if we offer them this way, would be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And our PE and art teacher or music teacher, whatever we wanted to do on those other days, would be on Tuesday and Thursday, so that our current specialist teachers continue to still have their Fridays off. That gives the 7th grade teacher and the 8th grade teacher some prep time so that we're honoring their AEA contracts. But there's, the latitude, if you look on the blues are the foreign language and the orange are the electives. And each one of those on there are current electives that are already in the program of studies through the district. So we could take a look at the district's program of studies and electives and choose other things, but those are things that I just thought matched the program and were already things that were listed in Page's options. And by the way, consumer science is actually home ec. The course description is more home economics. They just call it consumer science. So, would you like me to pull up the program of studies, or can everybody do that through the Google Drive?
I mean, I don't particularly need to see it, but we don't have to pick those, do we? We could do other things, right?
So
Go ahead.
if it's not in the program of studies, we'd have to get it approved. So we'd have to actually create a scope and sequence and an academic plan and get that approved by the district.
So if we wanted something different, we would have to line it out in our proposal.
If the class didn't already exist as
Yeah.
something that's taught in the district, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. So are there anything that could potentially become an elective that's not on the list that people really want to start exploring?
Do they have anything? Oh, you had something on there that's like, like the business education. I guess that would be kind of like budgeting and kind of stuff, maybe.
And budgeting, a home budget would also be a part of the home economics course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think for as small as the school as we are, that's a really good variety. And I mean, I don't think we also want to say that we're going to offer too many, because then we may be spreading ourselves too thin. And then people have their hopes up and say, well, yeah, I really wanted this and my kid didn't get it this year because of whatever reason. But this makes us, I think, competitive with the other middle schools, especially since our main focus is to be with higher rigor in our main academics.
Yeah, and I think they're broad enough on here that what we had suggested before would fall into categories of this.
And so the reason that the foreign language and the electives are offered at that time is, let's see if I can get this moved. our current elementary schedule, for which our specials teach, they start teaching their specials at 1:05. So if our art and our PE teachers were finished at 12:25, that would give them their at least a 30-minute duty-free lunch before they have to start their next class. And then in working with HR today, we believe that if our art and PE teacher, or we could substitute music in there if we wanted to do music instead of art, um, that would put them, instead of as a 0.3, they would be a 0.5 FTE. So they would still be under um, that full-time status. The difference is, and I need to explore this with OMB and HR a little more, that I believe at 0.5, they are no longer considered Social Security employees, but they actually might be incurring TERS retirement system. So we might be paying into the retirement system a little bit for these people if we choose to move them to a 0.5.
Which would be okay for PE, but not any of the other three, right? Because they're all retired, so they can't
Well,
they can't unretire.
I have an unofficial retirement notice from one of the other ones, unofficial re-retirement notice from one of the other ones. So we would be able to look for a half-time specialist in one of those other categories.
Okay. So this wouldn't necessarily be the staff that we have now, just the staff that would be in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are we good? In the section of electives, good, not defining topics, but understanding whatever we pick needs to be in the handbook, or we have to go through probably a process we don't want to. Yes, good.
It's not-
Sorry, the screen's on
It's
the
not that
screen.
it's not impossible to get something passed. It's just if we can find things that we think would complement our program and that students or parents actually want within the program of studies, I suggest we go with something that's already been built.
Also, what I just noticed, sorry, what I just noticed about the schedule is I think by keeping seventh language arts first thing and math second, we can still allow sixth graders to level if we need to. Maybe not for math, just kidding. Never mind, just kidding.
not to hit the schedule part yet. Are we good with electives? Are we good to move on? Okay. Okay, next is schedule. Okay, good. It flows well.
Sorry, my brain was just working ahead. Sorry.
Yes, so one of the reasons I built the schedule this way was so that we could look for, based on the requirements for certification, was that we could look for an English social studies teacher and a math science teacher instead of looking for two English, math, social studies, and science teachers, which I think are going to be really hard to come by, if not
Or
impossible.
one with math and language arts and science or social studies.
Yep. But when we advertise, we have to advertise for specifics. And you're more than likely going to find, based on kind of the mindset that you need to teach those two classes, a math and a science person and a social studies and a language arts person. They're a lot more common than a math and a language arts person.
But we could maybe ask if they would be willing to do the praxis or whatever for the other subject.
Yes, you could.
Unless your name is Mindy and then you are math and language arts and social studies, ex-nay on the science.
Look at that. They exist. I'm just like, my personal preference is to be following our program, but incorporating some middle school aspects. So my preference is still to be able to continue the leveling because I don't want to impede on what we offer for any K6 levelers. And you couldn't do that with the English and math flip-flopped periods here.
Well, you're also going to have an issue with the fact that the schedule does not mirror the elementary schedule for the times. I broke them down into the traditional 50 to 55 minute middle school, high school class times. So you'll notice that it's not the hour and a half for language arts because I just couldn't do it to have it flip flopped. So we could convert that back.
What do we do right now with a sixth grader that needs to level to seventh grade? Mindy, do you teach two math courses? I mean, obviously, let's go typical non-COVID land.
Yeah, I teach 2 math courses and 2 language arts courses.
So maybe then it's just expected that whoever the sixth grade teacher is continues that and they don't impede on whoever the seventh and the eighth grade teacher is.
Well, if you did it that way, then technically this if they leveled up for seventh grade language arts, they could go in and level because it's during the same time frame that they would be doing language arts anyway. It would be shorter, but then we could implement what we were going to do in the first place, was sending them back to their classroom and they just did independent work for the remainder of language arts. It's just the math that the sixth grade teacher would maybe have to do.
So that wouldn't be as bad. I mean, I don't know. I teach lots of grade levels, but would that be rough, Mindy? Assuming it's you or not you, but like, would that be rough to try to do?
I will tell you that language arts is a lot easier than math. Math is very difficult because you have 2 different concepts, 2 different lessons, and if you're trying to teach them in the same room, which I've had to do a few years, I have my sixth graders who should be working on their work, paying attention to seventh grade lessons, and they get all confused. And
Okay.
originally, when the charter was, when we started the school and the charter, there was to be a seventh level teacher. It was never intended that a teacher would be teaching like a combo class. I started teaching that because of budget issues, and it's just stayed that way. A seventh level teacher has never been hired for language arts and math.
So then we could just do the swap for the morning and say seventh grade has math first and English second, and then eighth grade would have English first and math second. So any levelers from sixth grade to math would level up to the seventh grade teacher. And then you could continue teaching the language arts to any of those that level. How does that sound?
Because first period math wouldn't be first period math in the sixth grade. Because we teach language arts first.
Dadgummit.
I guess I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not personally ready to like decide on a schedule yet. I think it could use like some more playing with. Do we have to have that decided or not? Dean?
The schedule is going to determine your staffing. So I cannot staff until I know what a schedule is going to be. So it doesn't have to be decided today. It just is going to push everything back until that decision is made.
Well, we can't even start anything anyway until people approve us to be able to allow to do it.
Right. But to send something to the APB for approval, to be able to say, yes, let's get this to the school board, we should make some recommendation or show them roughly what we're thinking about and how that would impact the rest of the program.
Okay. Can you swap what you have for 9:30 to 10:25? Can you swap it with that first set of electives? What happens if you did that way, and then swapped the English and the math for seventh and eighth grade? So that way, seventh grade English is still happening, not swap. Seventh grade English is still happening at 8:30, but then pre-algebra is happening at 10:30.
We can do that. The only reason I built it this way is so that the English teachers are teaching 2 English classes at a time versus, and then the foreign language teachers teaching 2 foreign language classes at a time, so on and so forth. Because then if you teach a science in the morning and one in the afternoon, but you're teaching a math in between that, the mindset switches. And as far as for teacher goes, it's a lot less taxing on them to have to teach the same preps in a row than to have them constantly flip-flopping and they have to change their sometimes even their supplies and what they're using to teach those courses. So it can be done. It just makes it a little bit more challenging for the teachers.
If we did do that, speaking from the teacher standpoint, because I hear what you're saying, would it be a prep period for them in between? So like they teach one and then it could be prep and then go to the next one?
It could be. And then if we, if we do that with the foreign language teacher and we get a foreign language teacher from another school, are they going to want to have to teach an hour and then be off an hour and then teach another hour
Yeah.
and then go home?
Well, I also thought the reason, and maybe this is just me, that we had the PE at that time was that if Anna was able to take over the PE, then she'd be done at 12:25 and she would still have, time for lunch before she started teaching her afternoon classes.
Right. So, it just is. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I built the schedule this way with all of those considerations. If we moved these two classes up, then we would have Anna coming in, or, we'll just use her as an example because she would be a person that could do that. She would teach here and be off and then teach here and then go to the elementary school. And we're only paying her 0.5. So the time that she's actually there in between, she's not going to get paid for. Or we can pay her more than that. We'll wind up paying her maybe a 0.6.
How much more do we have left to discuss on tonight's? Because we've kind of gone over different things and I just want to know.
I think the big things kind of tie into this staffing budget and the schedule will kind of all tie together, and then facilities, but we already know like basically what our options would have to be. And then I had a bullet on there for what are we recommending to the APB to include implementing next year or the year after.
Okay, well, I'm done for today, so I'm gonna let you ladies handle it and sign me up to do everything and then just text me what I'm doing. I don't think there's anything more that I can contribute that I haven't already, so.
Are you going to bed? I want to go to bed.
I'm probably gonna head there very soon. I can hardly keep my eyes open today. So
Well, thank you. And thanks for all your help.
you're welcome. Just let me know what else. I did email the gal at the district to try and get at least a copy or a digital copy of the science so I can start looking how that meets our standards or doesn't.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye, ladies. See you tomorrow.
Bye. I guess jumping to budget, since that kind of affects how we might want to do staffing and schedule. Do you want to put the budget up there? Did we look at that or did we only look at that last night?
I put the budget in here, but we did not look at it as
a committee.
Yeah.
We looked at it as APB. Okay. Do you want to put that up there so everyone can kind of look at what kind of numbers we're looking at?
where is it in here? Did it go somewhere?
I
There we go.
looked at it in there.
Okay. So, oops. On this screen, if you look here, the far right column is our current budget that we submitted for this school year. The budgeting process occurs in the fall, and charter schools are required to submit their budgets to the district for the next school year in December. So that second column from the right is what we submitted to the school board based on our average daily membership on the bottom of this page at 165, which was our current enrollment for this year. The next two columns are what we would project for the next 2 years. The one at the bottom that says ADM 202 includes 165 students with a full 6th grade next year and 11 7th graders. So assuming all of the 5th graders stay and all of the 6th graders decide to stay, our budget based on the current state funding for schools would be $2,372 and some odd money. What I did then was go out to project what our staffing would look like with adding one 7th grade teacher next year and ATA. And then I also, for the 2022-23 year, projected based on the current negotiated agreements what the step and class increases would be for teachers and TAs, and added an 8th grade teacher and an 8th grade TA. I kept our typical addendas the same for the activities that we had always offered. I didn't add any agenda items for things that would happen at the middle school, because those have yet to be determined. I didn't know if we were planning on doing any of the middle school addenda type things. So please keep that in mind. And then I also projected benefits based on the new staffing. And these are staffing just for the 7th and 8th grade teachers. It doesn't include any additional funding for anyone who's going to teach our foreign language or electives. So whether we find a foreign language teacher or additional PE or music teachers, because it didn't work out in the schedule for them to actually teach at the times we want to create with our master schedule, we would have to find other staff for that. But all in all, if you take a look, the line that really makes the difference is our line 3980. It's the one that is has the bold outline. That is the amount of money that we would have to play with to keep our budget balanced for any additional staffing, facility, things like desks, furniture, and all of those sorts of unforeseen things. So we can still balance our budget and add to our unallocated reserve, which is sort of like, it's not officially called a savings account. It's your emergency fund account that you would have in case, an earthquake happened and our building fell down and we needed to go move someplace else and get more equipment and things like that. So that being said, there would be a healthy amount of money to take a look at additional staffing requirements and things like that. Does anyone have any questions? I know it's a lot of numbers.
Only because I heard Vanessa mention it as a question that the APB had in regards to special education. Would we have to hire another sped to cover based on caseload or certification of our current sped teacher?
I think our current SPED teacher is a K-12 SPED. So the only thing that would impact our SPED program is if our 7th, 8th grade students brought a significant increase in caseload. Right now, our current caseload doesn't necessarily support a full-time special ed teacher, but she also does our manages all of our 504s and things like that that other special ed teachers don't do. So, and this also doesn't include any expenses for a counselor if we decided to do a full-time middle school, elementary school counselor. So that money could vanish fairly quickly, but we do have a healthy amount of funds in our unallocated reserves that could be transferred into those categories.
Any other budget questions or concerns?
So I did want to talk about that in relation to our scheduling, because the schedule that I could create made a lot of sense in starting with the 7th and 8th grade class. But trying to staff just the 7th grade alone will present us with a few challenges, because that one 7th grade teacher will be required to be language arts, math, social studies, science certified. So if we do a phased in program, we have a really daunting task, or I do, as far as recruiting and hiring. If we waited a year till we could build out and assume the lease and build out the space for the 7th and 8th grade classroom and a room for specials teachers to teach, we would have an easier time staffing. One of the things that is a possibility is to hire 2 teachers for that first year, knowing that we have to train them in Spalding and have them be able to both cover those content areas and not hire any TAs. So it would be a little bit more costlier to have 2 full-time teachers, but we wouldn't have to hire a TA for the first year. And then you would have the opportunity of both teachers having a year under their belts, figuring out what the program would look like and being able to tweak that when the 8th grade comes on.
Just a point to put in people's heads as a fellow teacher. Taking a praxis exam sometimes isn't just as easy just to get like a certification. So literally, if we're looking for one teacher, we're looking for like a unicorn. with those 4 things already certified. Because a lot of times with the praxis exam, we take them as we get out of college. And so then most of us are certified in whatever we want, and we don't go back to the practice exam because we keep up our yearly certifications. And those practice exams can be like $300 a piece sometimes too. So just something to keep in mind for staffing as far as if we want to ask somebody to do that. But just as a teacher, knowing what it's like to have to do a praxis exam, it's very nerve-wracking. And if you're asked to do that on a job interview, more than likely most of them are going to say no. So it sounds, I mean, I know it sounds more costly, but it may be a better idea to hire 2 teachers. That way then you're not looking for that unicorn just for 7th grade, but you're also not putting any pressure on maybe a really good teacher who doesn't really want to take a praxis exam in science or something like that. It's just my 2 cents as having sat through those exams. They're not fun.
To the cost aspect of that, I would say we should definitely offer to pay for it if we ask them to do it, not put it on them, but just for the cost aspect of that.
I would condition it to passing then. It's not too hard to pass, but I mean, you do have to study, especially like I had to go back and take the writing one when we first moved to Alaska, and I was 10 years out of it, and it was very nerve-wracking to do.
It seems like we'd be setting ourselves up for a better 7th and 8th grade experience if we did hire the 2 teachers, because then they can also get a feel for what Eagle Academy requires and then tweak it so that 8th runs a lot smoother rather than bringing on a whole new person starting fresh again when we start the 8th grade. That way the 7th graders, even if there's maybe some kinks to work out in 7th, by 8th they'll have seen it, they'll have worked through it, and then it's a lot smoother and they can hit the ground running.
And was your suggestion for that, Deanne, to do that?
Okay.
I missed it. If you said it, if it would be to hire 2 right next year to do that, or to wait until the next year and then hire 2 to start a 7th and then 8th having the 2.
Well, we definitely could spend if we were to be able to get this program approved and we wanted to phase it in. My recommendation is that right off the bat, we hire both our 7th and 8th grade teachers.
Okay, so either way, next year or the next year to start with 2. Okay.
Right.
I'm just thinking if we did it next year and wanted to hire 2, they'd have to obviously be okay with sharing a classroom because we don't have the facilities yet for next year.
Well, I was thinking like if kind of piggybacking on what Amy said, if we did that and we hired 2 now, the idea would be that they would sort of team teach, if you will, for the entire year while learning Spalding, while learning how Saxon works, whatever social studies and science curriculum that we're using, if they're not familiar with that. And then because they would then sort of be taking turns, because one of them would teach English, let's just say English and social studies, and the other one's teaching math and science. So while the one is teaching, the other one is A, TAing, and B, getting some of their plan time in, and then they swap, and then they kind of go back and forth.
I forgot about the TAing part. I was getting thinking one would have nowhere to go, but yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah. So they would be kind of doing that. And then all the while we're getting the program started with less, it's still 2 teachers, but it's less expense because we're not paying for the extra space yet in the other building. So then the next year, when we add the extra expense of the rent, then we can add on a TA or 2 if we'd like, because we'll have more students, if that makes sense.
It does also have the added benefit of the two teachers being able to align their behaviors and expectations, and building the fact that one of those teachers, or actually both of those teachers, will be those students' teachers for the 8th grade. And having the opportunity to be in the same classroom and working with the same group of students, then you have that inter-rater reliability of knowing what those expectations are. And having, so when students do switch classes, there isn't the, well, Miss So-and-so lets me do this, and Mr. So-and-so lets me do that. Why can't I do it in your class? Right? They'd have the opportunity to mesh both of their expectations.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on that? I guess would be staffing and budget area. And it, one APB member pointed out yesterday that yes, it might be a cost in if you were a business in the red for a year or two getting it started, but was pointing out that it's an investment and you expect it to turn out well, so that does happen, that you are putting in the money and the time up front, but in 3 to 5 years to have something turning a profit, in this case a great 7-8 program. If no one has any more questions, do we want to move on to, I guess, what we want to recommend to the APB?
Let's do it.
Deanne, do you have any extra things you would like us to consider?
No, I mean, a lot of the things I just wanted to flesh out some things, and make people aware of that there are kind of like A plus B equals C. Depending on what A is, C is going to look different, right? All of those sorts of things. And the fact that our scheduling is going to be really a key factor in, what we can do. And do we have something that honors the majority of our charter and the program and our expectations, but is a little bit different because a middle school program is not an elementary program? Are we offering enough of something that could be a really intriguing and valuable middle school experience, even though it's not going to have all the bells and whistles and thrills that a standalone middle school would have for parents? I mean, if you were a parent looking in, not already in our program, would this be something that, and knowing that we are a good program and trusting all of that, would this be something that would be familiar enough to you to want to enroll your student in?
Well, for me, thinking about what parents look for when they're looking for middle schools outside, say outside looking in, one would never know that Mirror Lake has a fantastic music program unless they know people, right? They would just look at the schedule and say, okay, they have, your standard 4 core classes. They make you take a music and they make you do PE and health. And then your quarterly electives. They don't let you take a foreign language unless you're in Spanish immersion. And I don't know about grading because I never did any research for that one, but I assume they're similar. So looking at our schedule, yes, okay, the music is missing, but the foreign language is prominent. So that makes it stand out to families where that is important, or where something is not, I know that this type of model isn't going to be for everybody, but neither is the regular middle school layout. That's not for everybody, hence why we are all here on this Zoom call. So I think since our K-6 program is very curriculum based and strong core values and whatnot based, by offering this more academic schedule sticks with what our charter stands for and will stand out as far as that's concerned. So I think for the families that are looking for that, this will stand out.
I agree, especially about the looking for not a middle school, because there are parents out there who, despite all the bells and whistles, are still not looking for their children to attend a regular middle school program. And that is something the parent who gave public input last night also said, that she knows other parents of middle school students who, if there was an option, would take the option rather than what's already established.
And I think most middle school families, I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but most middle school families, especially coming from, I teach at a K-5 school, so our only option is Mirror Lake. We don't have 6th grade. So their kids automatically are going to go there unless they wanted to transfer to a K-6 school. So to have a different option for some of those schools that either do have the K-6 all the way through, or even some of those higher kids in a K-5 school. Like, I think most people just go to whatever middle school. High schools are totally different. Like, people definitely choose Chudiak versus Eagle River for different reasons. But also, when you have a high schooler, it's more like, okay, well, somebody can probably drive you. Most middle schoolers are like, get on the bus, go to school, because this is one we're zoned for, and I can't really get you there for something else. So I think just being able to have another option out here would be very beneficial. And it does make us very competitive having that foreign language.
Deanna, I have a question really quick before I say the next thing I was going to say. What do you know? I was trying to ask Mindy, but I think she had just checked out. Does the Eagle Academy standards for science state that we must teach physical, life, and earth science every year?
I don't know that answer. And
I was trying to look it up on the website, but I couldn't find it in the quick search I was trying to do.
It's not in what's on the website. It's in like the 180 page charter renewal document.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. We have standards spelled out for K-6, but we don't have standards spelled out through K-8. Not for science.
Okay. Because when
Yeah.
I'm Googling science curriculums, that's kind of what I've been doing while I've been listening. And I found one that a middle school uses that has similar curriculums and stuff that we use, but this curriculum only does middle and high school, so they don't do elementary science, but they have it broken down where, like, sixth grade is, I don't remember what, let me just look. Sixth grade is life science. No, just kidding. No, they have three. They have earth science, they have life science, and they have physical science, but they're separated into three separate textbooks. And they're meaty textbooks. Like, I'm talking, it's a 450-page textbook for life science. I mean, I know, right? And and it's got the entire textbook that I can scroll through right now and look through every single page that the student would have. And it's super meaty. This is just at a glance, of course, but it just does, like, it's got the table of contents so I can see what it all talks about, and it's got some health topics in here, but it doesn't do all three, life, earth, and physical, in one textbook.
The district's middle school science curriculum is integrated science. So they do a little bit of the physical science, a little bit of the earth science, a little bit of the life science, all together throughout the year. And that's kind of what Mindy was saying, was how would she know within each section which to split for 7th and 8th grade, or between 6th and 7th grade, if she was to actually try to use the same textbook for 2 years.
So I'm guessing my question then is, do I need to Google and look for a curriculum that says integrated science that has all of them in it? Or can it be separate to where, like, 1 year they're getting science, and another year they're getting physical science, or whatever?
There's two philosophies. One is we could do 1 year that has life and physical, and 1 year that has earth and space, or whatever it is. The other philosophy, because they're like, that's just how our program is going to be. This is the scope and sequence for our middle school. Over the 2 years, they're going to get all 4 of them. The district has, that 4 and 4, and they divide the 4 into half. Half of it is 7th grade, half of it is 8th grade.
Okay.
The challenge with that would be when we have kids coming in, if they're in the middle of that, they might not have the entire breadth of everything that is expected by the time they get to high school. And the same is if a student leaves us, they might have more of what they were supposed to have and none of everything they're going to get, those sorts of things. So if we don't care, we can do what we want as far as,
Okay.
right?
Now, go ahead.
So if we have a kid that comes in to us from 8th grade, they might have huge holes in something because we taught all of it in 7th grade. And
Now
they're going
something-
to start out knowing more than our kids are because they had half of that in the 7th grade.
So something else we could do if we wanted to go this route could be to buy all 3, and then a committee go through between the 3 and divide them up. So that the teachers know, but the teachers don't have to sit there and do it. So we could say, like, these are the books we're using to meet our standards. Here are the standards. Here's where the sections line up with them.
Yep. You could do that too.
And here's option number 3. Sorry, what'd you say, Ann?
I said, as a teacher, I greatly appreciate that, not having to figure out which one to teach where.
Here's option number 3 as well. The life science book has health topics in it. So if they did life science and that book, then in their 7th grade year, then their health requirement is taken care of. Life science is taken care of. Then they have a 9th and 10th grade textbook. So now we're shooting higher expectations. That is physical, earth, and space all in one book. So 7th grade could be life and health, and 8th grade could be physical, earth, and space in a 9th grade textbook. I haven't looked at it. I don't know like how crazy it is, but I don't think that that's too insane yet. I don't know. What do you think? Dan's looking at me like I've lost my mind. Let me
I
just
haven't
open it
seen,
up.
I haven't seen, I haven't seen the textbook, so I'm not sure what to think about that.
You know how big it is?
Did you say you can read the whole
750
textbook?
pages. Yeah, the life science one you can.
Oh, okay.
So are you
Like
still
you can the link I texted you, Vanessa, just a minute ago. If you click on it, it is the textbook. So you can pull up the life
Oh,
science
okay.
textbook and look at it whenever, not now, but whenever.
So are you still talking about taking those 3 components and splitting them all across 7th grade and then all across 8th? Or are we talking about lumping them?
Well, that third option, I was saying buy just 2 books, and the life science would be 7th grade because that includes the health. So it's life science and health, and they got all that check marked. And then 8th grade would have the 3 that are all in one textbook. So less purchasing textbooks, less committee having to figure out what to teach. And then we just have to say, okay, that's what you get coming in the middle or leaving early, or it's middle school science. I'm not gonna lie, they do it all again when they go to high school where it actually counts for something. So they don't
And I was gonna say,
they don't cover all that in biology. They just cover biology. You know what I mean? So
I think there are standards, yes, but that doesn't mean that's what happens everywhere. Like, so I was in a 4th, 5th combo class, and I got 5th grade history because there was no way for them to be able to teach in the combo class, like both things. So we got like the 4th grade language arts and math, and the 5th graders got the 5th grade language arts and math, but we all got the same science and social studies. So I never got 4th grade history. So I didn't do ancient civilizations. I didn't do medieval times. I did 5th grade and 4th grade, and I did 5th grade history again in 5th grade. So, I mean, there are standards, but there are obviously exceptions to.
Right. So if we teach the standards and not necessarily the textbook, we'll make sure that our students have that solid foundation that they'll need for high school. If we teach the textbook, I think it's kind of cruel to ask an 8th grader to do high school curriculum and then when they get to high school, do that same curriculum again.
it's integrated though.
Okay.
The high school textbook it's an integrated textbook.
Okay.
To play
You see
devil's
it?
advocate a little bit with like, I don't think we're going to have that many kids coming into 8th grade from a different program, just because obviously everybody knows coming into our program, our academics are a little more rigorous, and most parents aren't going to be like, hey, let's just drop my 8th grader right in here. But I worry about, because we are a military family, like military families that don't have a choice on when they move. And it's already hard enough, but then if we're teaching the book instead of the standards, like to already have those holes, like military kids already have those holes. And I know we don't have to focus on that, but just to play that devil's advocate for some of our military kids, like if we're strictly going to teach the textbook, then they're going to have a bigger hole. And unfortunately, we're not setting them up for success.
I don't have an issue ordering the 3 textbooks and trying to merge it all together. I was just throwing out there that, hey, guess what? There's a 9th grade book that does all 3. If we want to throw in the whole, hey, we're challenging our kids. What about the gifted program? The yada, yada, yada.
No, yeah, I like that. I'm just thinking, I mean, my kids aren't moving. We're staying in Alaska. but that would be a concern to me. But also too, most parents don't look at it like I do because I am a teacher, so I look at those standards. But
Does anybody want me to text this link of this textbook to them? Or email it? I guess I can email it. Never mind. I'll just do that. Or if anybody wants to see it.
is that the big one or the 3 different ones?
The life, well, it's the life science one of the 3.
The health.
I haven't found, yeah, that has the health, and I haven't found the actual pictures of the textbook version or the page for page version of the earth and the physical, but they have it in their curriculum list. It's just, this is the only one I've been able to find where I can actually see all of the pages in the book. So assuming that, I'm not saying we have to go with this one either. I'm just saying, assuming we like this one, I would imagine physical and earth science textbooks are very similar, just covering the different material.
Sorry, Vanessa, I think I migrated away from your question.
Those. I don't even remember what my question was. Well, I mean, this is part of it, I guess. I think my question was, what kind of recommendation do we want to make to the APB? So this is in that.
Define recommendation for a parent that has not been to an APB meeting.
Basically presenting to them the framework that we're looking at and the curriculum that we're suggesting. And I would also like the staffing that we would be recommending, like we just talked about hiring 2 teachers the first year. And then also what year we're recommending to start it. It's just a recommendation. They don't have to take it. They can make motions or amend whatever, but what we've put together and what we think would be the best course of action.
I think this is probably where the two of Anne and Amy maybe chime in with what your thoughts are, because I already know where my thoughts are because I go to the APB meetings and I voice them there, and so does Vanessa. So I figure we should get your opinions before we sort of not take it over,
Yes.
because we would not do that, but you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? See if you two are on the same page as myself or Vanessa, if that makes sense.
And honestly, I'm
Maybe
on
the big
fence.
question.
So
Next year or
you
the
could
next
probably
year?
sway me.
My vote is biased.
Well,
I have a 6th
hey,
grader, so my
if
vote
you
is
can, if
I
you can
would want
defend it
to
though,
see-
if you can defend it, but other than by being just biased, then it's okay, right? I mean,
Well, I don't know. Man, the dog needs to go out. I don't know how many parents it affects and how many it could potentially affect. But my thing is, like, unfortunately, if you guys don't do it next year, that takes out 2 out of your group already. Because, like, I'm not going to send one of my kids to this school, one of my kids to this school, and then yet my 3rd kid to a different school. It just doesn't make sense for our family. So, I mean, but we may be the only combo that's like 5, 6. So that's
But you might come back if you hate it.
I wouldn't pull her for just 8th grade. I
Oh,
would though.
that's
oh, I get it. Yep.
But that's my opinion. But I mean, we could be the only family in the school that's got that 5, 6 combo. And so if you're just losing one family, like, don't rush it just for us. But that would be my opinion of, like, you may have some families in limbo right there, or who are really, or even a 5th grader right now who would stay for 6th if we had 7th and 8th, but would rather send them to Mirror Lake to stay with that group. So I don't know how many kids that actually affects.
Well, my thought process that I had mentioned earlier today to, I think, Deanne, don't remember. Anyway, I think I said, as far as like whether it was this coming up year or the following year, sort of piggybacking on what you're saying, if we started it this next year, then we're keeping hopefully all 26 of our current fifth graders, if not gaining a couple that we might lose, knowing that we'll have a seventh and eighth grade program the following year. We have just 10-ish current sixth graders that would possibly stay for seventh. Assuming we don't incur any more seventh graders, then we have a small enough group to where the two teachers we hire, and that's our only expense. I say only expense, but you know what I mean. Basically, we just have the two teachers expense because we're going to utilize our space, because we can do that with just a small seventh grade class. Vice waiting till the next year when we'll probably have only one small seventh grade class, and now we're incurring a whole lot more expense as far as renting out the rest of the building and hiring two teachers and whatever else goes along with assuming all of that extra space. That was my thought process anyway.
I tend to agree with Paige's thought process. I mean, I have a fifth grader, so I'm not worried about rushing it. And I would like it to be the most thorough thing that we can do to get it pushed through, rather than like present it, get rejected because we didn't flesh it all out, and then present it again. But with a smaller seventh grade group, we do have a lot more flexibility if we were to try and start this next year rather than wait. Because if people do pull their now fifth graders and send them to Mirror Lake for sixth, then we're already going to be starting with a smaller sixth grade class anyway. And yeah, if we're starting to add all the extra room and stuff, that ups the bill quite a bit and puts more pressure on the program.
So all of your preferences are to recommend implementing next year. Is that correct? I should look at the video. I'm like, no one's answering. Nodding. Yes. Okay.
I don't have my camera on, but yes, that's my leaning.
Okay. And then are we all leaning toward the recommendation? And I can send this in an email all out to the rest of the committee, since we seem to have narrowed our group now as it's gone on past 7. I can send it to everyone too, just so they can see what we kind of came up with at the end here, and they can agree or disagree or whatever. For curriculum, we're good with the language arts that Mindy put together on there, Saxon for math, the social studies, depending on when they publish 7th grade, we may have to split the books. Is that the preference for that? Between 5th and 6th for a year, we might have to do that.
Yes.
Okay. And then move it back to 5th grade to 5th grade, 6th grade to 6th grade, 7th to 7th, when that curriculum comes out. Okay. And then science, we're still not sure, but I was scrolling through the one that Paige found, and I like that it has a textbook still, because those are hard to come by with new stuff. And it looks, I mean, it doesn't look bad. There's some mathy stuff in here, kind of some questions that tie to, like, you know, they're like language arts, da, 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 da. There's vocabulary and yeah, what is it? Vocabulary, concepts. Oh, that's an assessment, but I mean, it doesn't look bad if you all want to look at what she emailed out. So do we want to recommend then that we're looking for our own curriculum, not the district's, and not splitting our science book? And we want to find something else. Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I say it'll either be we have to use what the district offers or we're finding something new.
Okay. And then foreign language, we definitely want to do offering it the first year and the second year so they can get the high school credit for it. And the options would be French, Spanish, or German, but weren't deciding yet, depending on what we might be able to find through staffing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then electives will generally fall within, I would say, like the guidelines or description, because then we could call it the name if the description is the same of what's in the middle school handbooks, and we would have to do some work if we wanted something totally different to get that approved to be offered. Correct? Okay. And then just using district PE standards. And for health, hopefully finding curriculum that includes the health component, with probably the exception of human growth and development being a couple week taught course again. Okay. Am I missing anything? We don't have a solid schedule to recommend, but we have a possible schedule that could just be played with a little bit to see what we could figure out. And then our recommendation, I guess, for staffing also would be increasing the PE and art positions somewhere between, I know Deanne, you said half, but if necessary, somewhere between like half and 3/4, or is 3/4 too much?
At 0.75, then you incur full-blown.
You don't have to do that.
I'm thinking, wait.
Or is it just above how long the periods are and the time slots that we would want to fill them with?
It depends on our staffing.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So staffing, it could be if we can utilize.
Else we need to add into a recommendation, or does that cover?
But
8th grade actually grows and we have a full 7th grade, then maybe we say, okay, yeah, well, our program is going amazingly awesome. I think we do need to have 2 TAs because we'll have the money to do it. And, you know, if you can do it, why not? Because it just provides that many more resources for our teacher and our students.
Okay. All right. So now are we missing anything else for a recommendation? Ian, is there anything else you think we need to include in it?
What else was on the why, or the thing for the school board? Because I mean, I know at the APB meeting, you know, there were questions about like patriotism, and there were questions about lockers, and there were questions about can we have a library, and questions about uniform variations and all that jazz. Like, do we need to get that sort of nitnoid at this point, or just stick into the basics for getting through the first few steps of all of this?
I personally think that conversation would come if we can successfully implement 7th and 8th, and then also goes along the lines of horizontal expansion, right? Because if you have a library, you have to have a librarian. We can't afford a librarian and only have 7th grade and 8th grade. Like, then you're just getting like too much extra staff. So to me, that would have to be a conversation that would come with like full blown expansion. But that's just my opinion. Dan might have a different opinion. I don't know.
Well, I was just saying for our presentation, like knowing that those questions were brought up, at least it should be addressed in the present or the proposal that, things like that will be considered as we start developing the plan, because, the basis of the plan is this, if that makes sense.
Any wise words on that, Deanne?
I think that we have a good starting point. I think we've covered the majority of the major components that really affect the program. Some of those things like uniforms and whether or not we have enough restrooms, those sorts of things, maybe secondary to whether or not the concept moving forward is good. Because until we get through the ASD board, we're not necessarily going to commit financial resources to anything. So I
Right.
think we have a really good starting point. That doesn't mean that someone on the board or at the meeting on Monday may say, I'm not confident at this time, or
Yeah.
who knows if they're gonna.
This is just our recommendation, fully understanding the APB could vote it down. The APB could vote to do it the next year instead. The school board could tell us no, come back later. The school board could pass it. The state could tell us no, come back later.
Right. Or everybody could be totally thrilled that in 2 weeks,
Right.
we got this far. It's a lot of work.
I think it's pretty impressive. I think we did a good job in 2 weeks.
Considering all the other stuff going on, this is pretty incredible.
So what we submitted on the board memo for Daryl to pass on, our statement of why, said Eagle Academy Charter School has long been interested in expanding their program to a K-8 program. Throughout the years that the school has been open, there has always been parent interest in extension of our current program for their future 7th and 8th grade students. Parents interested in remaining at EACS want the continuity of instruction and curriculum the school program and philosophy provide, as well as the same high standards and expectations. EACS has been open for 16 years and each year frequently scores in the top 5 with state standardized test results. In addition, EACS was awarded the National Blue Ribbon School Award for 2020 in the category of exemplary high performing. EACS feels that they have solidly established themselves as a successful K-6 program and feels the time is right to move forward with a 7-8 expansion. So that was our why. And then had a statement on the facilities for adding 7th grade next year and 8th grade the year after, that the landlord has always been willing to work with us on space and that it wouldn't be available for next school year, but could repurpose our technology lab for use as the 7th grade classroom. And the technology specialist would teach in the K-6 classrooms. Space for a 7th and 8th grade wing will become available for the 2022-23 school year. And the landlord would be willing to provide EACS additionally space as part or all of the building as needed. So that's like the preliminary stuff with clips on our language arts, math, science, and social studies. If that's helpful for anyone. So is that good then? For a recommendation? Thank you, dog.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Anything else you think we need to go over, Deanne? Or is that good?
No, I think that this is really good.
Okay.
We're making good progress.
Woo. And now I'm going to bed at 8:30.
Never happens.
It doesn't ever happen. I don't go to bed at 8:30. But meetings and meetings and meetings are exhausting.
Yes, they are.
So thank you all for working and coming to meetings. And if we don't need to go over any, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Should we, well, I guess what I was going to say is, should we like tentatively schedule something else? Because we need to do, I mean, our APB meeting's Monday and then the school board is Tuesday. So pending it passes Monday, then it goes on to Tuesday. Obviously, we need to attend the Tuesday school meeting. We need to be there virtually. Like, what do I need to put on my calendar next? I guess is what, I have the APB meeting on my calendar, but like after that, like as far as this committee is concerned, pending, things go according to recommendation, what do I need to put on my calendar next so I don't double book myself?
Well, you definitely maybe want to save the date for the 2nd. And then
For attending in person or for attending virtually?
I have no idea what they're going to request.
Okay.
And it is their first
Are they doing
reading.
in person still?
They have had in-person public comment.
Okay. I've just always seen like the screenshots of them and they're all on Zoom still.
Some of them are. I think half of them are online at any one time, and then half of them are actually at the board meeting.
Okay.
And so what time is that one? Is it 6:30? 7?
I'd have to look
I
it
can't
up.
remember.
6?
Okay, never
Are
mind.
they
I'll
at
just
6?
look it up.
Six.
I'll just look it up.
I think so too. And you were going to say it's their first reading, and is that I remember when they did our charter renewal, we came prepared to answer questions, and they were like da 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 the end, and they didn't ask any questions with the first reading of it.
Yes. So they may or may not ask questions. I've sat for 5 hours at a board meeting because we had something on the agenda and they didn't ask a thing.
Yeah, that's that's what Kitty and I did. It was our meeting was the one. Who was the person who they did like the tribute to? I don't think she had passed away yet, but they did like a tribute for her. So there was a lot of
Betty
ceremonial.
Davis?
Yes, there was a lot of ceremonial performances, and then lots of teachers were fired up about the language arts program that they were implementing that year. And so there's so much public testimony. And then it got to us and they're like, this is the item. Okay, next item. And we were like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. Approved.
Well, not approved, just
Oh,
that was the item. That was our first meeting with the first reading. So they didn't have any questions and they didn't want to hear anything we had to say.
what you don't want is for somebody to pull it from the agenda, which means they're not interested in hearing about it.
Right.
So,
So should we be ready, or are we banking on the fact that they're not going to ask any questions?
I would say be ready.
Is this the one where we need to get public comment as well, or is this the one where we take letters of intent? Or
no, I mean, the letters of intent may be something that they ask about before they make a decision. Like, how do you know that there is a need or desire for this Inigo River? Um, yeah, I have a hard time thinking that the board is going to have a lot of questions or any questions. I think that they understand the program has in general been successful, and part of that reason is, the reputation of the school and being very methodical and thorough in vetting things before we do something. But you never know.
I was going to
Never.
say it sounds rushed from the time we were like, okay, let's have a committee and then we need to get on a meeting. But I mean, it's been worked out, like floor plan wise, that we know that, like, we've known some of these components for a long time. So if we felt it was slopping something together, we probably wouldn't say, yes, let's go forward with it.
Right. But and something to be careful about. I mean, if they do ask questions, they're probably going to ask it of the APB, and probably you, Vanessa, as the chair and the spokesperson, and maybe me. I don't know, because it is a charter
that's
change.
what they-
So they're going to go ask the APB.
Yeah, that's what they did
Mhm.
with our renewal. It was Kitty and I who spoke on behalf of the school. And then we did have some parents give public testimony in favor of renewing the charter, but not answering program questions. We might have had Missy or Stacy as a teacher answering those questions too.
Yeah. So it might be a great thing if we have some parents talk about it as far as public comment is concerned. And they may be able to share things. I mean, they're going to be able to share things, Vanessa, that you and I aren't going to be able to share, because we're going to be asking
Right.
or answering specific questions.
Yes.
So if the committee wants to organize some parents who have maybe some pointed statements to some of those areas that we could really highlight, that might help the process.
And would that be at the first meeting or the second meeting? I don't remember how they do public comment.
Well, anybody
Because I
can go and
remember-
comment at any time.
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
they have like,
Does
they
it-
do public comment and then they do like a later one for the action items, which we wouldn't be at the first meeting, correct?
Right.
Okay.
We're not an action item at the first meeting. So I believe that would be the first part of the meeting's comments.
so is it better to have public comment on an action item or a non-action item?
Or both.
Both.
And is it public comment that's either zoomed in or live, or is it where someone, like, say Amy couldn't go but she wanted to write a letter that I could read on her behalf? Could I do that, or is that not allowed? Because I don't remember.
You can read it on someone else's behalf.
So you get 3 minutes per person. So, like, could I theoretically go up there with 5 letters and read one for each person who couldn't be there?
Mm, I don't know about that. You probably want to have 5 different people read
Okay.
for them.
They've been
So I
doing
Unless
couldn't
you
say
could-
read one for Amy and then do my own.
You might have to talk to Katie Grant. I think Katie Grant is the board secretary.
Yeah, I've talked
She
to her
would know.
before. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Only because I was talking about high school stuff before, and I was like, "Hey, why is this going away? And why is this happening?" Anyway, but it's fine.
They've been doing lots of call-ins too for the public testimony.
Yeah,
although-
so telephonic. You don't have to be on the
Mhm.
screen. You can just be on the phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although if you're mixed in with a lot of the action items right now, we're going to get buried in other things.
All right. So the only thing that we know to be aware of right now is being available for the March 2nd meeting in case we get on the agenda. Yes?
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Then let's be adjourned at 8:04.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time. I'll see
Now we
you
can go eat dinner.
tomorrow.
I know. Dinner, homework. Woo.
Hey, they don't have to go to school tomorrow, so I'm not checking homework tonight. I'm just gonna check it
Oh,
tomorrow.
thank you
and
for reminding me.
What?
I'm just gonna-
la 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 la.
Well, it's not due. She doesn't have to turn it in till Monday, so why do I need to check it? She's already done it. It's just me checking it. I don't have to check it tonight.
Okay. Well, go enjoy your family time.
Really gonna go to bed.
Bye.
Fine.
Bye.
Bye.